and believe God that as we go forward, He will not leave us. He will protect us and keep us. My purpose for speaking to you today is to help you understand that when everything has failed, the mercy of God can be counted upon. You know, when we read the Psalms, there were many people that wrote Psalms. Moses wrote a psalm. There were sons of Korah. There were many people that wrote psalms, but David wrote many psalms. One of the psalms that I want us to look at today, it's the Psalm of David. David is writing about the mercy of God, or David is writing this psalm in readiness for it to be sung in the house of the Lord. He sends it to the chief musicians to sing this psalm. This psalm is about David's experience of the mercy of God. David has seen that God is merciful. You know, when you think about mercy, you begin to understand that mercy is not a product of any man. And there is nothing that you can do to obtain mercy except to cry to God, who is merciful and who will not change his mind about you. He's always there to make sure that mercy is available for you. There is this blind man by the name of Bartimaeus who cried when he heard that Jesus was passing by. What Bartimaeus cried about, though we all know that Bartimaeus was a blind man from birth, we know that everybody had seen him struggling with this issue of blindness. But when you follow the cry of Bartimaeus, because he was so passionate and so emotional about this cry, that he was saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. There is no greater or better way that you can cry to God except to ask for his mercy. We see other people that experience the mercy of God. King Hezekiah had a lot of people coming against him, wanting to destroy Judah, of which he was king over. And he cried to God. And by mercy, God remembered and visited him, and the enemy failed. He fought for Judah. God fought for Judah because his mercy endureth forever. When you cry a cry of mercy, that's the highest order of addressing God Almighty, who is the fountain and the creator of mercy. When you appeal to his mercy, even if you did not deserve it, the mercy of God will make it available to you. I'm saying this because I want us to begin to apply the mercy of God in this season that we are in. We need to bring our children under the cover of the mercy of God. We need to bring our lives under the covering of the mercy of God. We need to bring our businesses, bring our careers, bring everything that has to do with us under the cover of mercy. Because the Bible has revealed to us that many people that appealed to the mercy of God, even though they were not deserving, the mercy of God made help available to them. As you live life, you realize that there will be always smarter people than you. There will be always wiser people than you. There will be always people that are ahead of you. Now, you will realize that your own strength will not take you very far. Your own power will not take you very far. You need somebody higher than you, greater than you, to come to your aid and help you. That person is God. Because all of us, everybody, every human being has limitations. Every human being can take you not very far, but God is all out for you, and He has the resources to help you. Today we are talking about the resource of mercy. Now, this Psalm 31, David, that was written by David, David is writing this psalm after experiencing the mercy of God. Let's begin to hear what David is saying about the mercy of God. He says, "In thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in thy righteousness." Now, David is saying, I put my trust in you. Don't allow me to be ashamed. As we enter this new season, as we are about to face a lot of things, let us ask God that, Lord, we put our trust in you. Why? Because you are a merciful God. Do not allow us to fall into shame. Do not allow us to be a reproach to men and even to our neighbors. He continues, David continues, he says, "Bow down thine ear to me, deliver me speedily. Be thou my strong rock, for an house of defense to serve me." Now David is asking God to bow down his ear, to listen to him, and be a place of safety for him. As we get in this Christmas season, particularly this festive season, you will discover that there are so many things that happen. But you will be safe when you ask God to be your house of safety, to be your rock that you run to for safety. So David is saying, I have come to realize that God is the only one that can help and save me because of the experiences that I have seen. I have seen that God is merciful. In other words, David is showing us that in spite of wrongs, in spite of mistakes, in spite of things that have happened in his life, he has always cried to God in his time of trouble, in his time of despair, in his time of anxiety, in his time of fear. Because as you listen to these verses, you hear that the person that was talking to God here was desperate for the help of God. So David had come to a place where he realized, no matter how the circumstances are, I can still go to God and ask him to help me in my time of dire need. He says, bow down thine ear to me. Deliver me speedily. You know, when you want to be delivered speedily, there must be something that was pressing David. There must have been something that was causing David to be anxious and maybe to fall into a pit of depression. Now he says, save me speedily. In other words, he is saying, if you leave me longer in the situation that I am in, I don't think I will survive. So I'm requesting and asking you to save me speedily. You know, there are certain decisions that we make. And as a result of this decision, particularly in times like this, you end up sinking even lower by the wrong decision that has been made. But there is always a way out. What is your way out? Your way out is to ask God to save you speedily out of that situation. And God is faithful and merciful enough to come to your aid in whatever situation that you are in. So David is making that clear to us, that in whatever situation he was in, he was able to ask God that bow down your ear. David must have had an understanding that God is higher than the heavens. The earth is his footstool. Heaven is his throne. The Bible also tells us that even when he wants to look at the heavens, he bows down. So David must have had an understanding of how capable God is, of how big God is. Therefore, he knew that the only place that he can run to and find help in the time of need was in God. He knew that God would be merciful at any time, would adhere to his cry, will provide the necessary help. When things get difficult in this season, remember, you have a God that you can turn to and ask him to help you. Because remember, chapter 15 of the book of Romans, verse 4, says the things that were written aforetime were written for us to learn from them, so that we can keep our hopes alive, so that we can be patient and believe and trust God that he was going to see us through. So these verses that were written aforetime were written for us to learn and understand that in our time of difficulty, God can come to our aid. So David, if we go back to verse 1, he says, in thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. In thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. David had an understanding that everything is shifting. Everything is not certain. We cannot be sure about things that we have. We cannot put our trust on our money because money is shifting. You can have $1 million today, and when you wake up the next morning, you may discover that you are no longer the millionaire that you were yesterday when you went to sleep. It is important to refer to history and discover what happened during the time of depression. There were people that were multimillionaires. There were people that had money. But a time came where depression hit America. Some of those people were throwing themselves from skyscrapers, throwing them to the floor, themselves to the floor. They killed themselves because the thing that they trusted had now failed them. The only person that can never fail you is God. Everything around you can change on you, can turn on you, but God can never turn on you. No wonder David is counted among heroes of war. He is counted among people that were wealthy, were affluent and influential. No wonder David was considered one of the prophets of God. He knew the secret of putting his trust in God. He is saying, "In thee, Lord, I put my trust." As I anchor my trust in you, I don't expect to be ashamed. He had understanding that it is only when you have anchored your trust in God that you are not ashamed. We wish you to enjoy this festive season. We wish you to take your time with your family. We wish you to have a time that you will not forget. But let me tell you, all those things are possible as long as you put your trust in God. It is God also who will take you into 2021. We have high expectations. We have dreams. We have visions. We have things that we want to accomplish. But those things are only obtainable to somebody that will put his trust in God. Because God has the ability to give you things and has ability to sustain those things, to protect those things. You know, the Bible tells us that it is for man to plan, but to bring it to pass, that is God's business to do it, who helps you for things to happen. But David is telling us that it is only when we anchor our trust in God that we can expect that we will not be brought to shame. You know, shame appears in different forms. You tell all your friends, you tell your family that this is what we are going to do, and suddenly circumstances change. You know, things around us change. The money markets will change on you. Certain things will change and never work in your favor. But when you trust God, you are sure that you will not be brought to shame. You are sure that God is reliable and merciful. And in verse 2, we hear David saying, talking to God now. Don't forget to talk to God. Don't forget to invite God in this season. God to help you. David is inviting God and asking God to bow down his ear to listen to him. And he said, deliver me speedily. Be thou my strong rock. Be my strong rock where I will stand. Make me stand in an unshakable place. Be that place of stability in my life. Be that unshakable rock in my life. I'm asking. You see, some of us do not receive because we don't ask. And God expects us to trust him. For a house of defense, be unto me for a house of defense. Serve me. God is expecting you to trust him in this season and expect him to help you in this season. Invite him. You see what David did here? He asked God. As much as God is faithful, as much as God is merciful, as much as God has power to perform great and marvelous things, but there is one thing that he gave to us, is for us to ask, and ask in faith to help us. You see, God didn't just do it for David. David had to ask God in faith. If you listen carefully to verse 2, it is David who was asking God to bow down his ear. In other words, to listen to him. And yet, there is a lot of evidence and a lot of scriptures that are telling us that God answers our prayer. But do you expect him to answer without you asking? You need to ask. Take this time to ask God. Ask God to answer you on the impossible cases. Ask God to intervene in whatever situation is too high or too difficult for you as you see it. Trust God. Invite God. Ask him to help you. David is heard asking God to bow down his ear. David is heard asking God to deliver him speedily. David is heard asking God to be his strong rock. David is heard asking God to be a house of defense. So the things that David is writing about, he's writing about his experience in God. That he asked God and God intervened and God helped him. Now, there's one characteristic about God that everybody must understand. God is no respecter of persons. He is a respecter of principles. If we follow the principle that David followed, we will get the same results that David got. Now, by virtue of having been washed by the blood of Jesus, of being a child of God, of believing and trusting God as a child of God, you are entitled to the same help that David received from the Lord. Now in verse 3, for thou art my rock and my fortress. Therefore, for thy name's sake, lead me and guide me. It is important for us at this particular time to ask the leadership of God. Because if your steps are not ordered by the Lord, you will end up going astray and making decisions that will cost you. So David is heard saying in verse 3, for thou art my rock, you are my stability, you are my stable place, you are my fortress. Therefore, for thy name's sake, lead me and guide me. For thy name's sake, lead me and guide me. It is important that at this part of the year, at this season of the year, we ask for guidance from God. We ask for leadership. Why do you think David is asking God to lead him? Because he knows that in him as a human being, there is this possibility of erring and going astray. So now he is saying, Lord, I know myself. I know my shortcomings. Therefore, I am asking you to lead me and to guide me. It is important for you to understand that David wrote this psalm, or this psalm comes from an experience that David had with God. An experience where God led him. An experience where God guided him. But David is showing us, as you read from verse 2 and 3, that you ask for these things. Let us take this time to ask God that, Lord, lead us. Don't only lead us, guide us. Because there are times where you can be led but not guided. So God is saying, David is asking God that, Lord, I'm asking for two things. I know I have asked for you to be my rock, my place of stability, my place of safety. But I'm also asking you to guide me, to lead me and guide me. Verse 4, pull me out of the net that they have laid privily for me, for thou art my strength. You know, as we live in life, the enemy has a tendency of putting traps for us. David is talking about the net, that they want him to fall into the net. In other words, the enemy wants you to be his prey. But we thank God that when God is helping you, when the mercy of God is available to you and you cry for that mercy, God will take care of every snare that the enemy has put in front of you. Every net, every trap of the enemy will not be able to trap you down, because you've asked God. You've asked him to guide you. You've asked him to lead you. You know, when God is leading, he goes ahead of you. And he sees whatever you might walk on, whatever might destroy you, and he takes care of it before you reach there. So that is why I am pleading with everyone. And I'm saying, this is your time to ask for help and guidance. That at the end of this season, or in this year that we are coming into, you are found being led, being guided by God. And the Bible tells me in Psalms, in Isaiah 48, verse 21, it says, when he led them, they did not thirst. In other words, when God is leading and guiding, there will always be provision for whatever situation you might come across. Therefore, let us maximize this season to ask, to thank God, to ask God, and believe him that God will help us and that God is a merciful God. When everything has failed, when all your plans have failed, the mercy of God is always available. When you cry to God, the mercy of God will be available. Bartimaeus cried, and he said, Son of David, have mercy on me. King Hezekiah cried, and God was merciful to him. And David cried, and God was merciful to him. You can cry, and God will be merciful to you. This is the season of asking God to guide and lead you, and expect his mercy to be available to you, so that even things that you did not deserve, you'll begin to receive on account of the mercy of God. I want to pray for you. Father, I bring this dear viewer to you. I ask you, O God, that as they enter in this season, may you bow down your ear and listen to them and help them and make your mercy available to them. In Jesus' mighty name, God bless you.